Do you support reparations for Black people?
Well, listen, and now we have segregation. We had over 200 years of slavery. We had Jim Crow for almost
So by default, it affects Black families, but there's not a particular policy for African Americans that you would explore.
But let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't Black.
Back at you, this BLACKFIRE-RISING on this channel, and I got my man Kanan Powers. What's up, bro?
What up with you, man?
Man, you know, we're trying to stay on top of these things as they happen, and what we're going to get into today is this whole elections are coming up in November, and as you said, November, this coming November, the Democrats are going to have to try to show up. So it remains to be seen if they show out. And I guess that depends on if Black people show out to a great degree. Let them tell it.
Right.
My thing is the age-old question, man. Like, we can talk particulars, but in generally speaking, and we've done videos on this channel about this before. What exactly are we getting for a vote? And to vote or not to vote, I guess, to coin my man Shakespeare, that's the question. And we're going to get into that, man. Did you have a prelude you want to talk about?
Not really. I think it's a topic that's ongoing because we have elections every 2 years at least, right? Because you got presidentials and then you have governors and senators and judges and everything. So I think it's a topic that's always going to be reoccurring, and we should address it every time election comes around. So.
Right, and as we vote even for these lesser tiers and the lesser of two evils, which is the strategy they give to us when we vote for these lesser tiers, that the Democrats on a national stage are shoring up votes so that if they can garner our confidence even in, senators or, Democratic and left-leaning politicians on those lesser levels, that will be indicators or those officials will be able to point us, up the line and contribute to the national elections and presidents. But man, yeah, let's get into it. Just to say this up front, I just have some talking points about it, but I'm going to reference this article by Politico. And, we can have our opinions about Politico, but we can go and fact check those. Obviously, cross-referencing the internet is, it's a virtual library. So we got to check the aisles for ourselves. But this is an article from Politico. It's dated October 25th of this year. And it's by Holly Otterbein and Alina Schneider. Now, this seems to be a pro-democratic article, but I'm gonna pick that apart. And bro, with your blessings, we'll just go ahead with this.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So one of the talking points is I want to mention is that downstream consequence of Democrats losing elections, such as the loss for Hillary Clinton in 2016. I think one of the things that we've seen in hindsight is that all of the predicted doom and gloom that was going to happen to Black people did not actually happen, at least not any more than the ordinary, and not outside of and sometimes at the helm of Democratic leadership. So, Hillary Clinton lost in 2016, and I think the approach was sort of the same then, vote for us because the other guy's worse. And, when she lost, Trump got in there and, Black people were still feeling Black, you know what I mean? And now we have this current guy, Joe Biden, is in there. And, my argument is that conversely, under the years of Joe Biden, you can make a decent argument that these years have been the most traumatic for Black America. Actually, for Black people, on a Pan-African scale, but definitely for Black people in the United States. And just to cite a few, we had George Floyd, we had the forced jabs, we had the panoramic the panoramic illness that sort of took over the country, and the forced jabs, the forced inhalation of one's own breath, even in public. We had a lot of mom and pop businesses that went out and got taken over by big corporations and automation. We had heightened police executions, actually, a skyrocketing in homelessness, immigration, mass immigration, which some, can reasonably say is a sort of outsourcing of the Black power, the Black vote, and the Black numbers, though immigrants tend to lean more conservative. So yeah, man, I'll pause there for you. Know if you had any comment on that.
I mean, a lot of that it's pretty straightforward, honestly. I don't have a lot to comment on it, but generally speaking, I think that's a pretty accurate depiction of what's just happened.
Right. And so in your opinion, do you think, let me ask you this quick, do you think that the Democrats, let's say before Hillary Clinton 2016 and the pronounced decline in Black political interest in terms of voting, before that, say the Democrats took our vote for granted, say that was already happening, say right before Obama actually came with the message of hope and change and rallied the Black vote to record numbers. And then as Black people, and this is all just theoretical, say Black people, once they saw that it was still a nothing burger, and that we actually got nothing, and the wealth gap widened between Blacks and, greater America during the Obama years, quantitative easing, etc. Say they took us for granted before that. Do you see the Democrats having changed their strategy at all in terms of doing more substantive things for Black people, getting a wake-up call in the low turnout and lack of Black interest? Has that motivated the Democratic Party to change their tune?
No, I haven't seen a change that's noteworthy as far as them actually holding up to their end of a deal to encourage Black people or to get Black people to vote Democrat. What I see is kind of the same old story, is that they basically kind of threaten and kind of put us in a position of like, well, who else can you vote for except for us, right? And then if we don't go that route, then they actually push us to the side and say, you know what, it's cool, we'll go after another people to kind of fill that gap. So they'll try to, persuade certain foreign groups to say maybe we can accommodate for those Black votes through somebody else, if we not really responding to the whole scare tactics or the condescending attitude of like, vote for us because the Republicans ain't gonna do nothing for you, so you might as well roll your dice with us, because at least you might get a statue or you might get a federal holiday or something like that, but nothing really substantial.
Right, exactly. So they doubled down. Instead of changing their tune, they turned up the volume of, you need to vote for us, man. Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't looked at it from that perspective, but they definitely did. The shaming, the guilt, the you better vote for us, sort of the threatening sort of thing. So yeah, I've said it before and I'll say it again. The alternative to voting for Black people, that alternative is actually, it couldn't be worse than voting, because we know we are living testimony to the effectiveness of voting, which is a survivalist mode, which is not a really living testimony. It's a survivalist testimony. We're getting by, but things are getting progressively worse. And now with immigration, the proportion of people that they want to keep interested in the political system, they're just basically trying to shore up those numbers and outsource us. But I think the alternative to voting for us would actually be true self-sufficiency and power. Because when you lose your confidence in the leader or the guide, you have to guide yourself. So when you have no confidence in a leader or a guide, then it's up to you and your God to make a way for yourself. And this is something that's been proven over and over by history. I mean, the American experiment itself, when they lost confidence in, England, in their motherland, and, the propaganda machine of Her Majesty was no longer working, and the people lost confidence, and what did they do? They stopped showing votes of confidence in the monarchy. And when they came to, these shores, they rebelled. They said, we no longer believe in you. We have no more confidence in Her Majesty. We're going to do our own thing over here. We're going to find our own way. We're going to make our own way. And those would-be peasants, subjects to that sort of aristocracy, they wound up, a great American experiment was created. Now, that was not good for us as Black people, but yet and still it's an example of what happens when the masses lose confidence in the political structure.
Right. No, that's true.
So, yeah, man, the Democrats, I think one of their problems is, and I've been listening to some of these articles lately and paying, sort of passive attention. What they use is they're losing Black confidence in vote, and Black people, we're basing our loss of confidence on the reality that we're suffering. And I think that instead of addressing our real concerns directly and saying, Blacks, your problem is a wealth gap. Your problem is you don't have the economics, you don't have the financial power to secure yourselves and your future. You're too dependent. And then when you lose your jobs, you're homeless, you have no power. People don't respect you because you don't have capital to therefore have your own businesses and self-sufficiency. And it's a wholesome sort of it's a holistic identity to not have money and then to not have self-respect. But I think instead of addressing it, Democrats tend to use passive, lazy, roundabout language. It's a snaky language that they use to speak to Black issues. And the snake thing is, a snake doesn't ever move straight forward. The only way a snake actually gets momentum is by the mechanism of moving side to side. And by moving side to side and not going straight, by moving side to side, it actually can make forward progress for itself. And this is why politicians, I think in general, they go back and forth and roundabout when they speak and give non-answers to our questions. It's because the essence of the progress they tend to make, they want to have appeal on both sides, the right and the left. And, just a real quick example, or you got on that, bro?
Yeah, I mean, overall, the Democrats, in my opinion, the Democratic Party pretty much knows that to a degree they need Black support. They know they need it to some degree because everybody's not going to fall for the crap that they push. So because of their racist views and what they think of Black people and how Black people react to things, they really don't have to change. It's kind of like a relationship where if a person is treating another person wrong and the person is complaining about it, but they're not leaving or they're not being active about really wanting to see this relationship change, the person who's doing wrong won't really change because it's like, why? I don't have to. I still can come home. I still can get a cooked meal. I can still treat you this way and you still gonna be with me, right? So that's how I feel the Democrats kind of look at the Black vote. They're like, no matter what we really do, they gonna vote for us. Because one thing I see, it's kind of changing a little bit, but there are Black people who just refuse to vote Republican because they won't do the research about the parties in general. And also because it's like a fear factor. You vote Republican as a Black person and it's like, oh, you're not really down for the poor people or the Black people. So knowing all these things, they kind of know that the Black people who do vote, they can say most likely they'll vote Democrat. And now we just want to get the people who don't vote every election or whatever. See if we can spark a little fire to get them to come and vote. Kind of like the Obama thing. Like you said, we voted in record numbers because that was the right spark needed to get the black people out to vote. But really getting black people to vote for political reasons, to me, it's a lose-lose. So I really don't promote that much voting. Not for Democrats or Republicans, but more so like if we really want to see change, I don't think it's going to come from either party significantly. It will be based off what we can build as a political structure, even if that means creating a party that is not really associated with either party, which would be a huge job in itself, because you would have to create a party, and I'm kind of just going on and on, but you would have to create a party that is not just geared towards black, right? Because otherwise you won't get enough votes to ever win. So you would have to create a party that has black entrants, but that's also supported by other Americans. And I think that will be the biggest hurdle in creating our own party. So it's really a situation that's it takes more thought than just action at this point, because action, like actually voting, won't necessarily get us results that we want.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Man, I don't know. Yeah, I agree. In a scenario of, say, sort of becoming more powerful in the existing political system, the answer would be tricky, it's in terms of like if we were to start another party. But man, at the same time, it sort of brings to mind, like, if you remember, you don't remember. I don't remember either, but there was a time when, for example, baseball, they had what was called the major leagues, and black men at the time were not represented in the major leagues. In fact, there was segregation. So black men could not play in the major leagues. And boy, it was an aspiration for black people to play in the major leagues, but there was a problem because they refused to represent us, i.e. let us play. And so as a result of that, the Negro Leagues was started. When black people started the Negro Leagues, it was totally separate from the existing economy of the major leagues. I mean, all of the circuits, the fan base, the places they played, it was all segregated. So we didn't play in the same parks, stadiums, obviously, the white fans and the fans that were allowed into the stadiums to see the major leagues. We had some that was totally outside of that system. And what wound up happening was, though ours was specifically only catered to Negroes, our talent and our self-sufficient sort of economy in terms of the Negro Leagues was so great that we started to draw they started to draw people that had no other reason to come to the Negro Leagues other than the better talent was there. And so they were enjoying the Negro games by the simple fact that we had more to offer. And a consequence of that was, all of a sudden then, now the major leagues started to, hey, let's break segregation in the leagues. Let's let the Negroes play with us. Why? Because, we wound up being a threat to their system. And sometimes it just makes me wonder, is like the best strategy to co-opt the existing major leagues, or, would it actually be key to start, a Negro league? I mean, starting out politically speaking, we would just, go ahead.
No, definitely. Just to comment on it, I think that that would be ideal. And judging off of the time difference, so at one point, I believe that the black conscience was a lot more aware, and to even be able to see a problem and say, hey, we're going to create a league for us, and be proud and be comfortable with that for so many years versus now. I think when you think about the younger generations and that lack of really like black pride, black power, or just the thought of being able to do something independently, it's definitely not impossible. I think it will take even time to basically give a rebirth to that thought process with all of the not just interracial content, but then you have, the LBGT, you have all these different aspects of what black pride and black power and all those things are now, that I think it will be even more difficult to create such an idea without even the black people themselves wanting to integrate it because of integration. Right. So I think now, at one point, that wasn't a big deal because the so-called dominant class was, they were the ones initiating the segregation. So you didn't have to really worry about the white class wanting to integrate initially, right? Until they saw the success of blackness, and then they like, okay, let's integrate it because then we can monitor it better. So now for the blacks to push segregation, I think would be a little more difficult in itself, because again, you would have the blacks that's like, hey, we need to add white people into everything that we do, or we need to add Mexicans, or we need to add things that we all don't really agree on. So the integration, I think, has caused more damage than people realize when it comes to sense of self, when it comes to black people. Now, of course, we have our black body that does represent and understand that, but I believe that it's less people for sure that would actually stand and back that in the black community.
Yeah, man, I don't disagree with that. It makes me think of, every push for black rights or rights that were exclusive. You don't even have to say black. If you look at reality, people that suffered under slavery, people that suffered under the lynching era and all that, when the civil rights sort of legislation was pushed, that initially was supposed to be a form of reparations, in the sense that it was supposed to lend towards the repair or the reparation of the people that suffered. And all of a sudden that became then an umbrella term that, like we would like to remind people that white females benefited from, to a great extent. And now, civil rights legislation or the benefits of civil rights legislation, affirmative actions and minority preferences and all this sort of stuff, we know that goes to white females, LGBT persons that identify, and so yeah, man. But hey, I know we could go on and that, man.
I know, right? That's
but
one that definitely go on and on.
Facts. Just a couple examples. And when I talked about this roundabout way that Democrats use to address what should be Black American interests, expressly Black American interests, what they'll do is these examples, okay? And this is a quote right here, cut from the article that I mentioned. Across the country, Democrats argued they have made Black voters a key part of their strategy and are talking about issues such as the economy, Social Security, and student loan forgiveness, in addition to abortion. Now, if for the lay people that are sort of passively follow and don't use critical thinking skills, none of these are exclusively Black issues. So if you notice, like, these are all the sort of rising tide lifts all policies. None of them are specific in their express targeting of Black Americans. This leaves the maximum swinging from left to right for people to interpret, meaning into it for themselves. It's moving like the snake. Anybody can look at these issues and find something of benefit to them so that they could, vote democratically. Because when you talk about the economy, that's everybody. Social Security is everybody. Student loan forgiveness is more actually white people than it is Black people. And, abortion is something that they push down our throats, telling us that this is actually a Black empowerment thing, the right to abort your children. And we might have to, I don't know if we need to edit out some of these words, but the right to abort children is actually an empowerment thing for you Black people, when in reality, it's a reduction in your numbers. So, I just want to say that, and quick, man, I'll let you chime in, and then I'll just do my wrap up part, and then you can do yours if you want, but you got something right now, bro?
Yeah, I mean, basically, like I said, I think we're on the same page with the way they go about campaigning and trying to get the Black vote. My whole thing is that neither party, in my opinion, can be trusted as far as actually doing something significant for Black people. However, if you are a person that wants to vote, I would say vote on things that impact you to some degree, right? So if you feel that the Democratic Party is going to help the country as far as like taxes and the debt deficit and things like that of that nature, I mean, go ahead and look into it and see which presidential candidate or governor has the best policies to help with that. But if you're voting for somebody to help and really take Black people serious and our issues serious, I personally don't think either party, especially with the candidates that I see, is going to do anything different than we've seen in the past.
Well, and I agree. I agree on that. I think the value in voting for them, and I've always argued that it's not necessarily the amount of votes, it's the continued belief in the system. Mm-hmm. So they don't want Black people to separate themselves and start to do for ourselves. So I honestly believe that the Democrats would not have any issue per se, at least not on the upper echelons, if Black people were all to abandon the Democratic Party and go vote Republican. Mm-hmm. I think people that are on the national and state level, I don't think they'd have an issue with that as Democrats, because we would still be voting for the same system, like the good cop, bad cop. The good cop doesn't care if you go talk to the bad cop and stop talking to him, because, well, they're both gonna get, as a partnership, they're gonna get their arrests, meaning they're all rich and are gonna benefit from big business anyway. Exactly. And the bad cop, doesn't care. What they don't want is for you to stop talking to either. And I think, that's a trick bag. But closing statements, man, I just want to give predictions. These will be loose predictions. I'll try not to hedge my bets, but I think that moving into this election and beyond, that Blacks will wake up, but the wake up process, I think, will necessarily happen in stages. I think Black people will demand more tangibles and tangibles more often. So you'll see Black people saying, no, we want either reparations, we want something that affects us specifically for our vote. And that'll be a voice. That'll be like, those voices that are crying in the wilderness will become so prevalent that, they'll no longer be in the wilderness, as it were. They'll be more mainstream. And downstream of that, we'll see the demand for tangibles actually translate into Black people consistently withholding their support for candidates that refuse to provide that. And we've already seen that, as we mentioned, the Hillary Clinton thing, and some of these states that are like Philadelphia, I believe, like they're saying are in danger or flipping red. And I think that beyond that, you'll see the actual proof in the pudding. Like Black people will start to disengage from the political process in stages. And ultimately, I think that the end game is that the government will decline, in sort of a kamikaze effort to deny Black people any true power and self-awareness. I think even if Black people get on the same page and shout with one voice, this is what we want, or we're gonna not vote, and in fact, we'll start our own politics over here, I think ultimately the government will be sort of a kamikaze response. I don't think they'll ever, really watch us flourish right before their eyes, Yeah, man, that's what I had on it, bro. I'll let you take it out.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I think that's perfect and well said. So we just gonna let y'all chew on that for a little bit. Thanks for tuning in. Shout out Dope Nation. You can check out that page as we upload more videos and additional content. Other than that, peace out.
Yeah, man. And what do you call that when it's the I forget the fancy word for it, man. But I wanted to say thank you all to the ones that commented on our previous video here on the Kanye West video, man. We're going to be bringing that, we're going to bring that dope. He going to bring that dope nation. We're going to bring that dope information. So keep commenting. And when I go back on here, I'm going to shout out your channel. Those of you that I find active in the comment section. And, you'll know who you are when you see it. Start shouting you guys out, those of you that are active in the channel. So there you have it, man. And peace out. Peace out.